Welcome to video number 2 on the cost analysis. So if you watched video 1, thank you very much for coming back. Thank you very much for taking the time. And to give you a bit of a recap, we're looking at how this can kind of bring in 3 different separate views into one framework, into one modeling process, and that's acquisition. You can look at this both paid and organic if you would like. The funnel and retention analysis, and conversion rates of your product. This is to give you a really kind of well-rounded approach to understanding what it is you need to be doing across both advertising and your product optimization to really get the most out of your budgets. Now, just to dive straight into the actual analysis here, let's have a look and see what it is we can do. Okay, so I'm actually just going to quickly take all that out just so that we can kind of start from scratch. So we've essentially got 3 different areas within this framework currently, and that's going to be around this. Let me just change this quickly as well. That's going to be one around a traditional kind of media planning document, and understanding kind of the levels of downloads and how people are falling through that funnel, or what we can expect typically from the money that we're going to spend. And then we're also going to be looking at the drop-off rates and retention rates. I'm just going to change all of this. And this will allow us to understand exactly what these changes are going to be able to do for us in the long run. And we're looking at this over a 6-month period for the time being. This is very much, very easily kind of extended into 9-12 months if that's the thing that's needed. But just to give you a bit more of a brief understanding of what it is we're looking at here. So we're going to be looking at the number of installs, the number of registrations, and the number of event X. Now, event X is going to be the final or most significant point in your funnel. That can be either a deposit, a booking, a purchase. It could be anything that's kind of providing you value and revenue at the end of the day. And we're going to work this out on a 3-step funnel. Obviously, there's a chance to extend that as well. What we're going to be doing is we're working this out on a 50% conversion rate from those 3 points in the middle. So from install to registration and registration to event X. It's typical kind of golden rule or rule of thumb that in your planning stages, you can typically say that, to work all this out, we're going to expect that we lose half the people at each step. Fairly self-explanatory in that respect. What we're actually going to see is how this affects our cost. Okay, we're going to be keeping a good eye on this this increase here over time for the cost per acquisition at event X, and what this does for our end users. Now, I talk to a lot of businesses, a lot of smaller app-based businesses, and this isn't being done. This is not a thing. People aren't looking at their acquisition models or the way that they bring people through the funnel like this. It's very much kind of learning as you go along, and that's great. What we typically see happens there is a lot of wastage sometimes in resource and the efforts that are being made, but a lot of the time in cash, and actually understanding how you can spend that money to actually bring people through more effectively than what you're currently doing. So I'm going to dive in. What we're going to do is we're going to look at this on a kind of exponential upward curve, almost like a hockey stick of cash being spent over 6 months. So we're going to start off on £2,000 a month, which is a fairly good place to start if you haven't spent anything or you're waiting for funds to come through, or you need to fundraise, etc. Or you're just kind of looking to extend your runway as much as possible. I've done that too much, 7.5. Okay, so we'll look at that kind of step-by-step increase, very gradual increases in that acquisition. So we're looking at spending around £27,500 over these 6 months. Right. Let's break it down by the elements. So still working out on that 50%. We're working out on a top line view of 70% people that drop off on a monthly basis, which is pretty standard for a lot of businesses, for a lot of apps. We're now seeing that we are having to acquire 13,750 downloads at the top of the funnel. With the 50% drop-offs, we're likely to see 6,875 people register. We're then only likely to see 3,437 can I make that smaller? Yeah. That was round out 3,438 people at event X in total, right? Now, that sounds great, but with retention rates and people dropping off, we're actually only looking at this as an end users of 1,236 at the end of those 6 months, right? That's only 9% of the people that we've acquired at the top of the funnel, okay? That's not great. That's not great at all. But if we dive into the cost metrics of that, let's say that as an agency, we are, tasked with getting downloads at £2. And that's our goal, on an average, that's our goal. We can say that actually, based on all that information, we're likely to get an £8 CPA at the point of event X. Now, that's great. When you look at these months in silo, if you look at it, we're doing good. We're still getting people in at £2. That's a variable that we can change manually. We're still getting people at £8 month on month, but what's happening over time is that cost per acquisition is increasing because of the number of people dropping off. So month 1 to month 6 comparison is 5.8x, 582% increase on that cost, which is just astronomical. And you don't really want to be doing that. You don't want to be seeing that increase in costs just to try and keep your business going. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out a way to reduce that cost and increase the end users using the product as well as advertising. So let's say we're at a healthy point in optimization. Okay, we've seen that we can definitely acquire people at £2. We're achieving that £8 CPA, but retention rate's awful. People aren't falling through the app as much as they could do. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start changing these percentages, and then we're going to introduce some retargeting as well to see how much that has an effect on our end users, the percentage of people that we're acquiring from the top of the funnel to the bottom, and the percentage of inflation for that CPA. So those are the core metrics we're going to be looking at, okay? Cool. So to bring that into perspective a little bit more, let's start understanding how the product can help that cost and help us with increasing users, okay? Let's say that we optimize the product to go from a 50% conversion rate from install to registration up to 60%. Okay, we're already seeing quite a significant increase. We've now broken above that 10% acquisition barrier from those top people in the funnel. We've now got a couple of hundred extra people in our funnel, which is great. Okay, now I'm just going to pull that back a little bit, because what we need to also analyze and understand is how this happens over time. So we're most likely going to see this stay the same, but look at the costs down here. So remember that 46.52, we moved that to £60. We're now getting under £40 on that total cost per acquisition, which is great, which is a fantastic way of being able to make our money go further because we're getting more users in. Okay, now it's fairly standard for the final event, especially in a 3-step funnel, to see conversion rates from registration to event X be anywhere up to about 95%. That's definitely achievable. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this bit by bit. And as you can see, we can go up in 5% increments. So again, have a look at this percentage, have a look at the end users, and have a look at that cost per acquisition over time when we move that 50% to 75%, okay? So to recap that, 10.8%, let's call it, 1483 users and a 3877, all right? Boom. Blimey. That's incredible, right? 16% of users now, 2,225 people in your funnel retained, and a overall cost per acquisition of £25.85. Now, yes, we are still seeing a 582% increase in those users, but we are making that money go a hell of a lot further already. Awesome. Let's just quickly, I would say let's optimize this up to 80%. Just for argument's sake, a 60 and 80% in those funnel points. This is going to be a really good point of optimization for your app. Excuse me. So just even in that extra 5%, we're now seeing over and above 17% acquisition from that top part of the funnel. We've now got just shy of 2,400 users, and we've got down to a sub £25 cost per acquisition over time. Awesome. That's really good. Now, what happens when we introduce retargeting to that? And that's where it actually becomes quite interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say there's no point in remarketing or retargeting in month one, because there's a lot of learning and testing that goes on in that particular time frame. There's not going to be a huge amount of data to retarget, so we're most likely going to be starting that in month 2 at the earliest, right? Let's say we're going to set aside another £5,000 for retargeting, so we're technically going to have a look at an additional £1,000 per month. Okay, now, so we're looking at £32,500 over 6 months. Now, typically, as we've done that, because we've added more to the funnel, we're not adding any more retained users to that. You know, our costs have increased slightly, but never fear, because we're not just going to be spending £1,000 to get no one. We want to make sure that we're getting at least some people through. So let's say we're getting 20%. Oh. The joys of working from home during the coronavirus. So let's say we're doing that at 20%. Month on month, we're getting an additional 20% of people that have dropped off. Okay, that's people that have completely, stopped doing whatever it is they're doing in the app at whatever point within the funnel that they were beforehand. Okay, so we're now getting 20% people in. I'm just going to take that back to 0% because this is quite substantial. Again, let's have a look at these costs, these metrics here. 17.26%, 2,373 end users, and a £26 cost per acquisition over time. Let's just put those 20% back in. How incredible is that? 23% now, nearly 23.5% of people acquired from the top of the funnel. We've now got over 4,000 people retained in it, and we've dropped our cost even further than it was before we added the extra £1,000 a month to £23.67. We're making really good headway here, really, really good. But 20% on a monthly basis of the people that have dropped off isn't a lot of people. So what we want to be doing is increasing this, and what I would probably suggest is that over time this is going to get higher. So let's say we're acquiring 20% for month 2 and 3. And then we've learned a lot more. We're doing a lot better things. We're being a lot more innovative and creative with the things, the elements we've got to play with. Let's say that from month 4 we're going to do quite a significant increase month on month. So we're now going to go to 35%. Now watch what this watch what this does. 24%, 4,320 users. Nearly 26%. Going on to 4,800 users. 28%, and we're getting up to 5,500 users just by learning all that stuff and making our money work a lot harder for us, a lot smarter for us, rather than us having to make, harder things to do. Now, really, really interestingly, this is where our percentage increase of that cost per acquisition starts to decrease quite significantly. Let's just go back those 3 steps. 5.68 times. 568% increase, okay? And then let's gradually put those back in. 504%, okay? So we've significantly dropped that overall increase in CPA over the 6 months. We've significantly increased our end users and the percentage of people we are acquiring and retaining from the top of the funnel, from installs. Awesome, awesome stuff.